Welcome back to Speak vanholding247, etc. If you like, subscribe, and share. What? Oh, you subscribe by hitting that little red button down there. That's right. Just hit it. Yeah, that's right. Today I'm gonna go in on Bob Saget's death. More specifically, I am going to expose the medical examiner. I'm going to expose Bob Saget's family, the wife, and the Florida Police Department. So, without further ado, I'm gonna roll these videos and then I'm gonna provide my analysis.
Parent stuff's a piece of cake. Bob Saget passed away in his Orlando hotel room Sunday morning. The initial autopsy report found no evidence of drug use or foul play. Police say Saget entered his room after 2 a.m. and was due to check out later that morning, but his family was unable to reach him and requested a wellness check. Security found Saget in bed, unresponsive and not breathing.
We have an unresponsive guest in a room. My officer is telling me that there is no pulse.
Saget's wife, Kelly Rizzo Saget, said in a statement, "My whole heart, Bob was my absolute everything."
To ET, his family, including wife Kelly Rizzo, shared the news that Bob accidentally hit the back of his head on something, thought nothing of it, and went to sleep.
How did Bob Saget suffer a fatal head injury alone in his hotel room? It's the haunting question raised by the autopsy on the beloved comedian, which found he died of blunt head trauma, most likely incurred from an unwitnessed fall. The just-released autopsy report says the blow was so severe he had multiple skull fractures, bleeding on the brain, bruising around the eyes, and an abrasion on the back of the head measuring 1 by 1.3 inches. The report says Saget was 6 feet 5 inches and weighed 228 pounds, and it found that at the time of death he tested positive for COVID. We showed the findings.
As you can see, and if you can't see, just listen to me, and you will see. The Florida Police Department and the medical examiner, based on the autopsy of a blunt trauma force, that's all the autopsy show, a blunt trauma force. Now, so that is a fact, some type of blunt trauma force. But where the fairy tale, the fiction come in is when they create a narrative. Bob Saget hit his head, thought nothing of it, and went to bed. Now, this is where anybody should be concerned about. You are creating a theory, and you're pushing this theory as a fact. So if you and I got on a stand in a court of law, or even under these situations, and come up with a narrative, they would look at us like we crazy in a motherfucker. So now I'm looking at them like, you motherfuckers on some bullshit. You on some bullshit. Let me tell you why. Here's the problem with your narrative, and here's why your narrative hurts you. You made the conclusion that he hit his head on something in a hotel room, but there was nothing there, no blood, no hair fibers to justify that conclusion. So we already know you some incompetent motherfuckers for even coming out with that, okay? You incompetent. You unprofessionals. You some Pop Warner motherfuckers. Speak Van Holding wants you to know that everybody out here don't have a cantaloupe for a brain. Now, let me tell you this here. Here's what I really think happened. You don't have to accept it. It's just what I think. Because what they getting us to try to think, they can put that back in a Cracker Jack box. I don't even want that prize. Now, check this out. I believe that there was an assassin's hit. That was a professional assassin's hit. But before I go into my theory that he was murdered, let me back up and show you another fundamental problem with the so-called authorities' conclusion of death. Since the evidence, and since they admit they don't know what he hit his head on, how the hell you gonna come up and say he hit his head and tell me what this man was thinking? Now, see, that is some wicked shit. That's wicked. So you supplying a theory that's predicated on nothing? It's like what they call a motive in a criminal court. When they want to say you did something, you could have done it, you had a reason to do it, they come up with a motive, right? They either say, well, you was a partner in his business, you stand to gain the complete business if he was murdered, or, you know, stuff like that. But here in this case, they just pulling theories out of the air. You haven't heard no news media blast that bullshit. You haven't heard family or friends blast that bullshit. They're afraid. They stupid. Everybody wants to make money, but don't nobody want to stand up and say, hold up, something is wrong here. You can still make your money by exposing this shit. Because see, the minute you fail to speak on this shit as a media outlet, you motherfuckers on some fantastic and delusionary shit as well. Now, let me get on with my theory of the assassin's kill of Bob Saget. You see, the authorities, nobody is mentioning whether there's cameras in the hotel, in the hallways. Nobody's mentioning whether there was cameras or no cameras. Just like in the Chelsea Chris purported suicide. These hotels have cameras, you would believe, right? In this day and age, you know, to protect themselves from rapes in the hallways, murders in the hallways. So why is it that no video footage is being spoke of? See, they conveniently left this out by creating a theory. They didn't say, well, there's no videos of in a hotel, or there's video footage in the hotel that shows he entered this room alone with his card key. There's none of that. They just saying his card key swipe showed that he entered the room. Well, he can swipe that motherfucker, but that don't mean he entered the room by himself. See, this is their theory until you challenge that theory. This is what they do in criminal cases. When they can't prove you did something, they come up with conspiratorial theories. And then the jury eat this shit up because they know they have cantaloupes and apples for a brain. Now, nothing that they have said shows that this man died of an accidental slip and trauma of the head. Not, especially the location of it. This was a professional hit by an assassin. Now, where the assassin hit him in the head at, it could be, he could have did it inside the hotel, he could have did it while he was getting out, could have did it when he was in a restroom of a hotel somewhere. We don't know. The only thing I'm saying is, I believe he was murdered. That's why the room was so neat. When you bring in a trained killer, Bob Saget was 65 years old. He wasn't muscular. It don't take anything to subdue certain men, okay, by surprise. It don't take any real struggle. Now, when this man was hit in the head, at some point, he could not recover. He laid down. Or somebody put him down in that position. Because you can get hit in the head, become unconscious, and they can manipulate your body in any form. So they said he died with his hand like extending out and one on his chest. This is what they say. Now, I am saying that because you have came up with a theory of how he died, is something wrong with that. you supplying a reason for the death, and there's no factual, medical, or scientific basis for that. That is what we call fiction in the strictest sense. Now, for his wife to accept this, I think she was a suspect. I think she had him murdered. That's what I think. Just like they think he slipped and fell and thought nothing of it. Well, I think that she had him murdered. She stood the most of the game. I believe somebody went in that room. Let me tell you how I think they done it. I'm going to tell you how I think that blunt trauma that cracked his skull in many places. Let me tell you what I think happened. The assassin shot him in the head with a rubber bullet. He just didn't take the gun and put it to his head. He cushioned the impact to where it would have the desired effect. That's what happened. Now, if you're familiar with rubber bullets, you know that rubber bullets can achieve this. See, his family did not say he called us and say he slipped and fell. But they gave this statement because the authorities telling them to give this statement. And here's another thing. The authorities, the medical examiner, they worked too hard to say there was no drugs or alcohol in his system. They worked so hard for that. Now here's the problem with that. Who cares if he had alcohol in his system? Who really cares if he had drugs in his system? But the problem occurs when you create a theory of how somebody died, and then you say this is a fact. Now, the only way that a so-called authority will say some shit like that, they just got to really believe we are a citizenship of incompetence. It don't hold up. Once again, how do you look at an autopsy and say blunt trauma? Okay, Bob hit his head, thought nothing of it, and went to sleep. That's just like saying Chelsea Chris was so depressed, went up to the top of a building and jumped. See, when the authorities can't make sense of something, they create nonsense. And they say at least it's some sense. Well, that's my take on Bob Saget's death. He was murdered by an assassin. I call that the assassin's kill. Plain and simple. The family knew the room he stayed in. And like I said, he over there in Florida. Like I said, what's missing? What is missing? Were there any video footage of the hallway? Is there any video footage coming in the entrance of that hotel? All this is missing. And you would think that this is very important. But it's conveniently left out. Because they are covering up something. They are covering up something. Nothing in that hole. You falling that hard to create a trauma to crack your skull, there will be noticeable signs in the hotel room. Noticeable signs. No blood. Because this was an assassin's kill. When you train to kill, to where the cause of death can be concluded as some type of trauma, but indefinite, you are trained to do this. Plain and simple. Once again, my method of kill for Bob Seger was a rubber bullet to the head. Like I said, they could have muffled it with you take a towel and strip it over his head and still shoot it. But that's what caused the trauma, I believe, a rubber bullet. It could have been something different. A rubber bullet with a silencer. Plain and simple. Take that to the authorities and tell them to explain why they have not stated. Were there video evidence in the hallway coming into the hotel? Did he come in the hotel by himself? Did he actually swipe the key card? Or was he accompanied by somebody? Who knows? He may have been hit by a female assassin. I don't know if the assassin was male or female. Plain and simple. Well, that's it for today. I want y'all to consider and think about that. You're dismissed.